Just out this morning, a new ABC News Ipsos poll in the closing days of the campaign. So let's bring in ABC News political director and Washington bureau chief Rick Klein and Jonathan Karl, who will be hosting This Week later this morning. Good morning to both of you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being with us. We were just talking about this behind the scenes. What does our new poll say about the race nationally? And Rick, this question is specifically for you. What does it say about the race nationally? And what does that mean compared to the battleground states, which will ultimately decide the race?
Yeah, good morning, Janae. A 51-47 lead among likely voters for Kamala Harris, but that is by no means a safe lead. We have seen across a range of recent polling a tied race, maybe even Trump ahead by a point or two. The 538 polling average has Harris up by a little more than a percentage point nationally. And your point about the battleground states is exactly right. The race is essentially deadlocked across those 7 battleground states. Trump has shown the slightest signs of momentum in the last couple of weeks. And if you just take our poll and you narrow down among the battleground states, you see that margin begin to tighten. So this is going to be fought out on the ground in those 7 states where you see just the narrowest of edges for Harris in Michigan and Wisconsin. And right now, a slight Trump lead. But all of this well within margins of error, and all of it very much coming down to who shows up between now and election night.
And Rick, what does the poll tell us about the candidates' strengths and weaknesses on the major issues?
Yeah, we're seeing a real split in terms of how the candidates are perceived and how voters are ranking some of these different issues. We see Donald Trump with a clear edge to voters who are concerned most about the economy. It's similar on immigration and the border. That's his biggest lead on anything in the poll. But the flip side of that is that Kamala Harris has a big edge on people that think about abortion rights first and foremost, and this key issue of protecting American democracy. A lot of Republicans think that Trump is the choice, but overall, particularly among independents, Harris is the choice, and that feeds right into her closing message.
John, let's turn to you because you've been watching the battleground states. Could this really come down to just one state?
Gee, this could come down to one city.
Wow.
This could come down to one city. First of all, as you saw, Rick showed that chart of the 7 battleground states. Every single one of them is within the margin of error. Now, that means they could all break one way and you have a relative electoral landslide, or you could have a scenario, and there are a number of scenarios, where you actually end up with a situation where one candidate has 268 electoral votes and the other candidate has 270. And the one electoral vote that made a difference is Nebraska, which actually splits its votes. The area around Omaha has a single electoral vote, and that is an area right now where Kamala Harris has a lead, and she may need it. She may need it to get over the top. We'll see how it plays out.
And John, what will the key message from each candidate be in these final 9 days? And really, John, what could it be? Because when a race comes down to that close and the criticism of each candidate, when 8% of people, according to our poll, believe that Donald Trump is a fascist but would still vote for him, what could either candidate say?
I mean, don't you want to, Janae, get out there and meet some of these undecided voters?
Yes.
How at this point are you undecided in this race? Look, it's pretty simple going down to the argument for Trump is essentially, and he said it last night, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Now, that's the argument Republicans want him to be making in the end. But, of course, he is not known for message discipline. He talks about things like the enemy within. His Joe Rogan podcast, he was talking about life on Mars. He's not exactly disciplined in making that message. But that's where Republicans say it has to come down to. And for Kamala Harris, what she is really zeroing in on now is what she defines as the threat of Donald Trump. You heard her say that he is a fascist. She is basically just quoting people who worked very closely with Donald Trump, like John Kelly in the White House. But she is making the case not just for her own policies, but that the country has a severely important choice and that Donald Trump actually poses a threat to American democracy.
All right, John, Karl, and Rick Klein, we so appreciate your guidance here on this consequential Sunday, just 9 days away. Thanks to you both.